The fluorescent lights in the counseling office hummed like they were tired of pretending. Malik Johnson sat straight in the vinyl chair across from Miss Peterson's polished oak desk, palms flat on his knees, so she wouldn't see them tremble. Through the narrow window behind her, he could see the football field baking in the late August sun. Seniors were supposed to feel hopeful this time of year. He felt inspected. Miss Peterson adjusted her glasses and scanned his transcript as if it were suspicious. "Your grades are impressive," she said carefully, tapping her pen against the page. "But schools like Westbridge Academy don't usually admit students from Lincoln High." Malik swallowed. "I know it's competitive, but my essay, it's not just about essays." Her smile thinned. "You should consider more realistic options. Trade programs. Community college. Something practical." The word practical landed like a verdict. He glanced at the wall behind her, rows of framed acceptance letters from past students. All of them white faces and glossy senior portraits. He had memorized them over the years. "I've worked for this," he said, voice tight. "I'm ranked second in my class." Miss Peterson leaned back. "Malik, I don't want you setting yourself up for disappointment." Then she added almost kindly, "Be smart about where you belong." Where you belong. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. Malik forced a nod, but something inside him cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to change the shape of him forever. As he stood to leave, her phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted. "Wait," she said. Malik froze in the doorway. Malik didn't remember walking down the hallway. The lockers blurred past him in streaks of chipped blue paint and college pennants taped crookedly above them. Laughter echoed from somewhere near the cafeteria. Sharp and careless. The world had kept moving. Where you belong. He shoved the guidance packet into his backpack and headed for the exit. Outside, the heat wrapped around him like a warning. He stood at the edge of the parking lot, breathing hard, staring at the cracked asphalt. For years he had done everything right. Honor roll, debate team, tutoring freshmen after school. He had memorized acceptance statistics the way other kids memorized song lyrics. And still, she had looked at him like he was a risk. "Yo, Malik," Jamal called, jogging over with a basketball tucked under his arm. "You good?" "Yeah," Malik said automatically. Jamal studied him. That didn't sound like "yeah." Malik hesitated. The words felt heavy. "She told me to be realistic." "About Westbridge?" Jamal's eyebrows shot up. "Man, you're ranked second. She said I should think about where I belong." Jamal's expression shifted from confusion to something darker. "That's messed up." Malik shrugged, but it wasn't casual. "Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm reaching." "Don't start that," Jamal snapped. "You work too hard." Malik watched a group of white seniors pile into a truck plastered with college decals. State Northbridge, Westbridge. No one had ever told them to be practical. "I'm applying anyway," he said quietly. "Good." That evening, the apartment smelled like onions and disinfectant. His mother stood at the stove in scrubs, shoulders slumped from a 12-hour shift. "You're home early," Denise said, turning. "Counselor meeting go okay?" Malik set his backpack down slowly. "She thinks I should look at trade programs." Denise frowned. "Why?" "She says Westbridge is ambitious." Denise turned off the burner. "Ambitious isn't a bad word." "She said I should be smart about where I belong." Silence filled the kitchen. Denise walked toward him, wiping her hands on a towel. "Look at me." He did. "You belong anywhere your work takes you," she said firmly. "Don't let anybody shrink your world." He exhaled shakily. "What if I'm setting myself up?" "For what?" "Success." She shook her head. "Baby, you think those other kids got told aim lower?" He didn't answer. Denise's jaw tightened. "Did she say why?" "She said it's competitive." "It's competitive for everyone." Malik pulled out his draft essay, edges bent from rereading. "Maybe she's just trying to protect me." Denise held his face gently. "Or maybe she's used to seeing certain names on those acceptance walls." The truth of it settled between them. Later that night, Malik sat at the small desk in his room. The window unit rattled. He opened his laptop and reread the Westbridge scholarship prompt. Describe a moment when you refused to accept limitations placed upon you. He almost laughed. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then he began to type. The next morning, whispers followed him through the hallway. Ms. Peterson says Malik's looking at trade school. He's not going to Westbridge. He kept walking, jaw tight. In AP English, Mr. Clark paused by his desk. I heard you're applying to Westbridge. Yes, sir. Mr. Clark nodded. Good. They'd be lucky to have you. Malik blinked. Ms. Peterson thinks it's unrealistic. Mr. Clark's mouth flattened. Realistic is often code for comfortable. The words lingered long after class ended. During lunch, Malik checked his email. A notification blinked. From Westbridge Academy admissions subject. Application received. His heart pounded. He had submitted it. No fanfare. No permission. Just a click in the quiet of his bedroom. That afternoon, he passed the counseling office again. Through the glass, he saw Miss Peterson laughing with a white student and his parents, brochure spread neatly across the desk. She glanced up and met Malik's eyes. Her smile faltered. Just for a second, he didn't look away this time. After school, he stopped by the office. Ms. Peterson looked surprised. Malik, did you need something? I submitted my Westbridge application, he said steadily. Her lips pressed thin. I see. I'd appreciate a strong recommendation letter. A pause. Of course, she said carefully. I'll write something appropriate. Appropriate. He nodded. Thank you. As he turned to leave, her phone buzzed again on the desk. She glanced at the screen. Her eyebrows lifted. Malik, she said sharply. He stopped. Her eyes flicked between him and the glowing display. You might want to sit down. By third period the next morning, the email had already traveled farther than Malik had. He didn't know about it until Mr. Clark called him over after class. Close the door, Malik, Mr. Clark said quietly. Malik obeyed, pulse quickening. Did something happen? Mr. Clark turned his computer screen slightly. I received this last night. Malik stepped closer. Subject: Student Concerns, Malik Johnson. Ms. Peterson's name sat neatly at the top. She emailed all your core teachers, Mr. Clark said. She expressed concern that you may be overextending yourself with unrealistic post-secondary expectations. Malik felt heat crawl up his neck. She sent that to everyone? Yes. What does that even mean? Mr. Clark leaned back. It means she's framing your ambition as a risk. Malik stared at the words again. Overextending. Unrealistic. Expectations. She didn't talk to me about emailing my teachers, Malik said. I gathered that. Silence stretched. Do you think I'm overextending? Malik asked. Mr. Clark didn't hesitate. No. I think you scare people who are comfortable with patterns. Malik let out a tight breath. Patterns. Lincoln High sends maybe one student to a place like Westbridge every few years, Mr. Clark said, and rarely on full scholarship. That doesn't mean I can't. It absolutely doesn't. Malik swallowed. So what happens now? Now, Mr. Clark said calmly, you keep doing what you've been doing, and I'll make sure my recommendation letter reflect reality. Thank you. When Malik stepped back into the hallway, the air felt heavier. By lunch, two of his teachers had pulled him aside. Ms. Alvarez from AP Calculus adjusted her lanyard nervously. Malik, I just want to check in. I heard you're applying somewhere competitive. Yes, ma'am. That's wonderful, she said quickly. Just make sure you have backups. You know how these schools are. I do. She smiled, but it looked rehearsed. Later, Coach Reynolds stopped him outside the gym. Peterson says you've got big plans. I've always had big plans, Malik replied. Coach chuckled awkwardly. Nothing wrong with being practical, though. Malik forced a polite nod. Practical, realistic, backup. The words circled him like quiet warnings. After school, Jamal caught up with him near the bus stop. Bro, what's going on? My mom said she got a call from the counselor asking about my post-graduation trajectory. Malik blinked. What? Yeah. She was asking if I considered welding certification instead of applying to state. That's messed up, Malik muttered. Jamal lowered his voice. She told my mom state, might not be a supportive environment for me. Malik felt something click into place. Did she say that to Tyler? Malik asked. Tyler who? Tyler Matthews. Ranked 12th, applying to Northbridge. Jamal snorted. No way. Tyler's dad plays golf with the principal. The bus roared up to the curb. That evening, Malik sat at the kitchen table while Denise sorted bills. Mom, he said, did Ms. Peterson ever email you about me overreaching? Denise looked up sharply. No. Should she have? She emailed my teachers. Denise's eyes darkened. Without talking to you first? Yeah. She set the envelope down slowly. What exactly did it say? That I might be setting unrealistic expectations. Denise inhaled through her nose. Unrealistic for who? Malik hesitated. Jamal's mom got a call today about him applying to state. Denise's voice lowered. And Tyler Matthews? No one's calling Tyler. Silence thickened between them. Denise leaned back in her chair. This isn't about protecting you. Malik stared at the table's chipped edge. Then what is it about? It's about keeping certain ceilings intact. He rubbed his temples. What if I'm reading too much into it? Are you? He didn't answer. The next day, Malik found himself standing outside the counseling office again. The door was half open. Inside, Ms. Peterson sat with White Jr. and her parents. We're so excited about Princeton, the mother was saying. Ms. Peterson beamed. With Emily's leadership profile, she absolutely belongs in that applicant pool. Belongs. Malik felt his jaw tighten. He knocked lightly. Ms. Peterson glanced up. Malik, I'm in a meeting. I'll wait. He sat in the plastic chair outside, listening. Emily, don't sell yourself short, Ms. Peterson said warmly. Elite institutions look for confidence. The door opened a few minutes later. Emily and her parents left smiling. Ms. Peterson straightened her papers. What can I do for you? Malik stepped inside and closed the door. I wanted to ask about the email you sent. Her expression flickered. Email? To my teachers. She folded her hands. I was simply ensuring they were aware of your plans. You said I might have unrealistic expectations. I said you may need support managing them. Why didn't you talk to me first? Her voice stayed smooth. Malik, my job is to guide students responsibly. Responsibly, he repeated. Yes, I've seen students aim too high and crumble under rejection. I'm not afraid of rejection. That's easy to say now. He met her gaze. Would you have sent that email about Tyler? Her smile faded. This isn't about other students. It feels like it is. She sighed. Malik, I care about you. I don't want you crushed. By expecting institutions to see you the way you see yourself. The words hung between them. Malik felt something cold settle in his chest. So you don't think they will? I think the world can be unkind, she said softly. And you're preparing me for that by lowering my chances? Her composure cracked for a fraction of a second. That's not fair. What's not fair, he replied, voice steady now, is deciding where I belong before I even get the chance. Silence. Her phone buzzed on the desk. She ignored it this time. Malik, she said carefully, sometimes ambition needs to be tempered. And sometimes, he said, it needs to be defended. He opened the door before she could respond. Outside, Jamal was leaning against the wall. How'd it go? Jamal asked. Malik exhaled slowly. She thinks she's protecting me. And I think she's protecting something else. Jamal nodded grimly. So what now? Malik looked down the hallway lined with college banners, none of them showing faces like his. Now, he said quietly, we pay attention. Behind the closed office door, Miss Peterson finally glanced at her phone. Another notification from Westbridge Admissions. Her fingers hovered over the screen. For the first time, her confidence felt less certain. The conference room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old carpet. Malik sat at the oval table, hands folded in front of him. Across from him, Ms. Peterson arranged a neat stack of folders. To her right sat Assistant Principal Greg Whitman, expression neutral, tie perfectly centered. Denise Johnson entered last, still in her navy scrubs, hospital badge clipped to her pocket. Sorry, I'm coming straight from work, she said, taking the seat beside her son. You're right on time, Whitman replied smoothly. Ms. Peterson cleared her throat. We're here to discuss Malik's post-graduation plans. Malik glanced at his mother. She gave him a small nod. Whitman folded his hands. Malik, you're a strong student. No one disputes that. But, Malik asked calmly. Whitman's smile didn't reach his eyes. But certain institutions have expectations beyond academics. Like what? Denise asked. Cultural fit, Ms. Peterson interjected. Campus alignment, support systems. Malik felt the words like invisible fences. I have a 4.1 GPA, he said. I'm captain of debate. I tutor freshmen. And that's commendable, Whitman replied. We simply want to ensure you're not setting yourself up for unnecessary disappointment. Denise leaned forward. Is this the same advice you give every student applying to Westbridge? A pause. Each case is unique, Ms. Peterson said carefully. Malik pulled his phone slightly closer to him on the table. Screen dark, but recording. So what makes my case unique? He asked. Ms. Peterson hesitated. Westbridge is historically rigorous. Students from Lincoln High haven't always thrived there. Which students? Denise pressed. Whitman shifted in his chair. Let's not turn this adversarial. I'm asking for specifics. Denise said evenly. Ms. Peterson opened a folder. In the last 10 years, only 3 students have been admitted. And how many applied? Malik asked. She blinked. I don't have that number. Were any of those 3 black? Denise asked. Silence filled the room like smoke. Whitman cleared his throat. This conversation is about preparedness, not race. But race keeps hovering around it, Malik said quietly. Ms. Peterson's voice sharpened slightly. Malik, no one is questioning your intelligence. It feels like you're questioning my place. That's not what I said. You said I should be realistic. Whitman leaned forward. Realism is part of maturity. And discouragement is part of what? Malik asked. Denise placed a hand lightly on her son's arm, steady but not silencing him. Ms. Peterson's composure tightened. Malik, elite institutions often look for legacy connections, donor networks. So because we don't have those, Denise cut in, he shouldn't try? I didn't say that. You implied it. Whitman's tone hardened. Mrs. Johnson, we're trying to protect your son from potential rejection. Denise met his gaze without blinking. My son has survived far worse than a rejection letter. The room went quiet. Malik felt his heartbeat steady. Did you send emails to my teachers suggesting I was overreaching? Ms. Peterson inhaled. I expressed concern. Without talking to me. I believed it was in your best interest. How? So they could help guide you toward attainable goals. Attainable for who? Malik asked again. Whitman's patience thinned. Malik, no one is saying you cannot apply. But you are saying I shouldn't expect to belong. That's not accurate. Then say it clearly, Malik replied. Do I belong at Westbridge? Silence. Ms. Peterson glanced at Whitman. Whitman chose his words carefully. Belonging is something institutions determine. Malik felt the weight of that sentence settle into his bones. So it's not about my grades. It's about many factors. Denise's voice softened but sharpened at the edges. If Malik were named Matthew Johnson, would we be having this meeting? Whitman stiffened. That's an inappropriate hypothetical. It's a necessary one, she replied. Ms. Peterson looked at Malik. Something flickering behind her eyes. Defensiveness, maybe doubt. I've dedicated 22 years to counseling students, she said. I know what environments can be hostile. Then prepare me, Malik said. Don't limit me. The air seemed to shift. Whitman glanced at the clock. We've made our recommendations clear. Ultimately, the decision to apply is yours. It already has been, Malik said. Denise stood. Then we're finished. As they gathered their things, Ms. Peterson spoke again. Malik, she said, softer now, I don't want you walking into a space that won't embrace you. Malik paused at the door. I already walk into spaces like that every day, he replied. The hallway outside felt cooler. Denise exhaled slowly. You handled yourself well. I recorded it, Malik said quietly. She stopped walking. You did? He nodded, in case they pretend this was about something else later. Denise studied him, not with fear, but with recognition. You shouldn't have to think like that, she said. I've had practice. They walked toward the exit together. Behind them, in the conference room, Whitman rubbed his temples. This could escalate, he muttered. Ms. Peterson stared at the empty chair where Malik had been sitting. I was trying to protect him, she said, though the words sounded thinner now. Protect him from what? Whitman asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her laptop and began typing an email to document the meeting, to frame it carefully, to preserve her version. Down the hallway, Malik's phone buzzed in his hand. A notification from Westbridge Academy admissions. His breath caught. Not an update. Not yet. Just a request for supplemental materials. But it was something. He looked at his mother. They're still looking at me, he said. Denise squeezed his hand. Good. Behind them, inside the polished offices of Lincoln High, conversations were already shifting tone. Words like liability and optics began to float through administrative corridors. And for the first time, the question wasn't whether Malik belonged somewhere else. It was whether Lincoln High was ready to confront what had quietly allowed to stand for years. The first crack didn't sound like a protest. It sounded like whispers in the library. Malik sat at a corner table with Jamal and Aisha Thompson, editor of the Lincoln Ledger. Aisha's braids were pulled into a tight bun, highlighter tucked behind her ear, notebook open and ready. Start from the beginning, she said. Malik leaned back. Counselor meeting. Email to my teachers saying I might have unrealistic expectations. Jamal snorted. She called my mom about trade school. Aisha's pen moved quickly. Exact wording? Supportive environment. Jamal replied. She said state might not be that for me. Aisha looked up. Did she say that about anyone else? Malik shook his head. Emily's applying to Princeton. She got told not to sell herself short. Aisha's jaw tightened. Okay, that's a pattern. Or coincidence, Malik muttered. Aisha gave him a look. You think it's coincidence? He didn't answer. She flipped to another page. I pulled last year's graduation stats. 8 students applied to top-tier private schools. And Jamal asked. 6 were white. All 6 received counselor recommendation letters within a week. Malik felt his chest tighten. And the other 2? Both black. One withdrew her application. The other never submitted. Why? Jamal demanded. Aisha hesitated. The counselor noted in internal tracking that the student reconsidered fit. Fit again. Malik stared at the wood grain of the table. So it's not just me. No, Aisha said quietly. It's not. Across the room, the librarian cleared her throat for silence. Malik lowered his voice. If you publish something, I won't publish without proof. Aisha cut in. But I can ask questions. He nodded slowly. That afternoon, he found himself walking through the hallway more aware than ever. He noticed which college banners had names beneath them, which guidance office bulletin boards featured smiling faces. Tyler Matthews slapped him lightly on the shoulder. Heard you're stirring things up, man. Malik stiffened. What do you mean? My mom said there's some rumor about the counselor discouraging applications. And Tyler shrugged. I mean, she's always pushed me to aim high. Of course she has, Malik thought. Did she ever talk to you about cultural fit? Malik asked. Tyler frowned. What's that? Malik almost laughed. Nothing. Later that evening, Denise sat across from him at the kitchen table again. A student reporter's looking into it, Malik said. Denise stirred her tea slowly. Are you ready for what that might bring? What do you mean? If it becomes public, people will pick sides. I didn't start it. I know, but you might become the face of it. Malik stared at his hands. I didn't ask for that. No one ever does. He exhaled. What if I'm wrong? Denise leaned forward. Are you? I don't know. Maybe she really thinks she's helping. Intent doesn't erase impact, Denise said softly. He nodded, though doubt still lingered. The next day, Aisha approached Miss Peterson after school. Malik waited down the hall, pretend to scroll through his phone. I'm writing about college application support equity. Aisha said politely. Ms. Peterson smiled. That's a wonderful topic. Can you comment on how recommendations are prioritized? They're written based on readiness and appropriateness. Ms. Peterson replied smoothly. Appropriateness for what? For the institution in question. Aisha scribbled notes. Do demographics factor into that? Ms. Peterson's smile thinned. Absolutely not. Malik watched from the hallway. The exchange was cordial, calm, but something in Ms. Peterson's posture had changed. Her shoulders were tighter, her answers more measured. When Aisha finished, she walked toward Malik. She's careful, Aisha said quietly. She always is. But careful people leave trails. Malik swallowed. You think there's more? Aisha met his eyes. I think institutions don't change unless someone forces them to look. He felt that settle inside him. Not anger, not revenge, recognition. The following morning, Mr. Clark stopped him again. You've caused a stir, Mr. Clark said. I didn't mean to. Sometimes meaning it doesn't matter. Am I wrong? Malik asked. Mr. Clark studied him for a long moment. When multiple students feel smaller after guidance sessions, that's not individual insecurity. That's culture. Malik nodded slowly. In the main office later that day, Assistant Principal Whitman stood with Ms. Peterson near the copier. I'm hearing chatter, Whitman muttered. It's student gossip, she replied sharply. Gossip becomes headlines. Ms. Peterson folded her arms. I've always acted in students' best interests. Whitman lowered his voice. Make sure that's provable. Across campus, Aisha uploaded draft notes to her laptop. Title, Who Gets Encouraged? She hesitated before typing the next line. Lincoln High celebrates ambition, but only for some. Meanwhile, Malik sat in math class, staring at the clock. He should have been focused on integrals. Instead, he was replaying every counseling meeting he'd ever had. Every time someone praised his work, but redirected his dreams. Maybe he had noticed before. Maybe he had just accepted it. His phone buzzed quietly in his pocket. Another notification from Westbridge Admissions. Application under review. 2 words. Under review. Malik closed his eyes briefly. For the first time, he realized the scholarship decision wasn't the only thing under review. The school was too, and patterns, once seen, refused to disappear. The envelope was thicker than he expected. Malik stared at it on the kitchen table, as if it might disappear if he blinked too hard. Westbridge Academy's crest was embossed in deep blue at the top. His name, Malik Johnson, printed clean and official. Denise stood across from him, still in her scrubs, purse hanging from her shoulder. Open it, she whispered. I'm trying to breathe, he replied. His hands trembled anyway. For weeks, everything had felt suspended. Whispers in hallways, careful conversations. Aisha's draft article waiting for confirmation. Under review had become a phrase that echoed in his sleep. Now the decision was here. He slid his finger under the flap and tore it open carefully, like it might bruise. A folded letter. Heavy paper. He unfolded it. His eyes scanned the first line. Dear Malik Johnson. He swallowed. We are pleased to inform you. His breath stopped. Mom. Denise gripped the back of the chair. What? He looked up at her, disbelief flooding his face. I got in. For a split second she didn't move. Then you got in? He nodded once, hard. She pressed her hand over her mouth. He looked back down, scanning faster now. Selected as a full tuition recipient of the Westbridge Scholars Program. Full tuition. The room felt too small for the news. Denise let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She pulled him into her arms so tightly he almost dropped the letter. I knew it, she whispered fiercely into his shoulder. I knew it. He clutched the paper behind her back, eyes stinging. They said, full scholarship, he said into her shoulder. Housing stipend, too. Denise leaned back, tears on her cheeks. You hear that? Housing stipend. He laughed shakily. Yeah. She wiped her face. Call Jamal. He did. Jamal answered on the second ring. What's up? I got it, Malik said. Silence. Got what? Westbridge. Another beat. Then Jamal shouted so loudly Malik had to pull the phone away from his ear. "No way." Full ride. "You're lying." "I'm not." Jamal's voice cracked. "Man, you did it." Malik smiled despite himself. "We did it." After they hung up, Denise looked at him carefully. "What are you thinking?" He stared at the letter again. "I'm thinking about that meeting," he said quietly. Denise nodded slowly. The next morning, Malik carried the letter in his backpack like it was fragile glass. He hadn't planned to show anyone right away. But news has a way of moving faster than intention. Aisha saw him first. "Well," she asked, eyes sharp. He didn't speak. He just handed her the letter. Her eyes widened as she read. "Full tuition," she breathed. "Malik." He nodded. She looked up at him. "This changes everything." By third period, the rumor had become fact. "Is it true?" someone asked in the hallway. "Did you really get a full ride?" Malik answered quietly, "Yeah." Whispers turned into congratulations. Not everyone looked pleased. He knocked on the counseling office door. Ms. Peterson looked up from her computer. "Malik, I wanted to let you know," he said, stepping inside. She gestured to the chair. "Sit." He remained standing. He placed the letter on her desk. Her eyes flicked over the crest. She read in silence. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Congratulations," she said finally. "Thank you." "Full tuition," she added. "Yes." A pause stretched between them. "Well," she said, forcing a smile, "that's wonderful." Malik studied her carefully. "You didn't think it would happen." Her smile thinned. "I was cautious. You were discouraging." She straightened. "Malik, admissions decisions can be unpredictable, but you were sure enough to email my teachers." Her fingers tapped lightly against the desk. "I had concerns." "About my ability?" "No." "About my fit?" She hesitated. "Malik," she said slowly, "I'm glad you proved the odds wrong." "The odds," he repeated. "Westbridge doesn't often." "Doesn't often what?" She stopped herself. "Doesn't often accept students from Lincoln High," she finished. He held her gaze. "I belong there," he said evenly. She nodded once. Apparently. The word hung sharp between them. He picked up the letter. "I didn't prove you wrong," he said quietly. "I proved myself right." He left before she could respond. In the hallway, Assistant Principal Whitman stood near the main office. "I hear congratulations are in order," Whitman said, offering his hand. Malik shook it. "Full scholarship," Whitman said. "Impressive." "Thank you." Whitman's smile was practiced. "We're proud to have supported you." Malik didn't flinch. "Supported?" Whitman's grip tightened slightly before releasing. "Lincoln High always supports its students." Behind him, Aisha watched the exchange carefully. By lunch, the Lincoln Ledger had updated its draft headline from "Who Gets Encouraged" to "Who Gets Discouraged." Aisha showed Malik the screen. "Are you ready?" she asked. He stared at the blinking cursor beneath the title. "I didn't want this to be about a fight," he admitted. "It's about fairness," she said. He looked down at the letter again. "Full tuition. Proof." "They told me to be realistic," he murmured. Aisha nodded. "And you were." That afternoon, in the counseling office, Ms. Peterson closed her door. She reread the scholarship letter. Full tuition. Housing stipend. She opened her sent emails folder, scrolled, paused. Her earlier words looked different now. Overextending. Unrealistic. Managing expectations. Outside her door, students passed by laughing, unaware of the quiet unraveling inside. For years, she had told herself she was pragmatic. Now, she wasn't so sure what that meant. In the Johnson apartment that evening, Denise taped a copy of the letter to the refrigerator. Malik stood back, staring at it. He felt proud. He felt vindicated. He also felt something else, something heavier. Winning didn't erase what had happened. It simply exposed it. And tomorrow, when Aisha's article went live, the letter wouldn't just be a celebration. It would be evidence. The article went live at 7:12 a.m. By 7:19, the first screenshot had been posted to the senior group chat. By 7:25, parents were forwarding it to each other. Malik read it sitting at the edge of his bed, phone glowing in the dim morning light. Who Gets Discouraged? By Aisha Thompson. The piece was careful. No accusations. No shouting. Just patterns. Direct quotes from students. Anonymous but unmistakable. Statistics on recommendation turnaround times. Language pulled from internal tracking notes. Reconsidered fit. Unrealistic expectations. Alternative pathways advised. And then, near the end, a simple line. One student, previously cautioned about belonging, received a full tuition scholarship from Westbridge Academy. Malik swallowed. Denise stood in the doorway. It's out. He nodded. She stepped inside. Are you ready for today? No, he admitted. Good, she said softly. That means you understand it matters. By the time he walked into Lincoln High, the atmosphere had shifted. Clusters of students stood closer than usual. Conversations stopped when he passed. Jamal fell into step beside him. You're trending in the PDA Facebook group. That's not comforting. They're arguing in the comments. About what? About whether this is playing a race card. Malik exhaled slowly. Of course. In the main office, Assistant Principal Whitman stood with a tight expression. Phone pressed his ear. Yes, we're reviewing the matter, he was saying. No conclusions have been drawn. Ms. Peterson's door was closed. During second period, an announcement crackled over the intercom. Students are reminded that the Lincoln Ledger is an independent publication. Administration is aware of recent concerns and is conducting an internal review. Murmurs rippled through classrooms. Mr. Clark met Malik's eyes briefly and gave a subtle nod. At lunch, Aisha joined Malik and Jamal at their usual table. My inbox is exploding, she said, dropping into her seat. Good exploding or bad exploding? Jamal asked. Both. Malik pushed his tray aside. What are people saying? Some parents want a meeting with the school board. Others think we're exaggerating. Are we? Malik asked quietly. Aisha met his gaze. No. Across the cafeteria, Tyler approached hesitantly. Hey, he said. My mom's furious. At me? Malik asked. No, at the article. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck. She says it's making the school look bad. Maybe the school should worry about why, Jamal muttered. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. I never noticed anything. Malik nodded slowly. That's kind of the point. Tyler didn't argue. After school, the parking lot filled with more cars than usual. Parents gathered near the entrance, voices sharp. Denise stood among them, arms crossed. Inside, in a hastily organized meeting room, Whitman addressed a small group of concerned families. We take equity seriously, he said. No student is discouraged based on race. A mother in the back raised her hand. Then why did the email say unrealistic expectations? Whitman's jaw tightened. Context matters. Then share it. She shot back. Ms. Peterson sat beside him, face pale but composed. I have always acted with students' best interests at heart, she said into the microphone. A murmur rolled through the room. Denise stood. My son was told to be realistic about where he belongs. All eyes turned toward her. He earned a full scholarship the next day, she continued. If that's unrealistic, maybe your expectations need examining. Silence. Whitman adjusted his tie. The district will initiate a formal review. Outside the building, Malik waited near the steps. He hadn't gone inside. He wasn't sure he trusted himself to stay calm. Jamal stood beside him. You okay? Jamal asked. I didn't want it to blow up like this. It didn't blow up, Jamal said. It was already cracked. Malik watched his parents exit the building, some nodding at him, others avoiding eye contact. Aisha emerged last, holding her phone. They're launching an internal audit, she said. Of what? Malik asked. Recommendation letters, application tracking, communication logs. Malik's stomach tightened. That means emails. Yeah. Across the lot, Ms. Peterson stepped out of the building. For a second, her eyes met Malik's. There was no anger in them now, only something unsettled. She approached slowly. Malik, she said. Yes, ma'am. I never intended for this to become public. It was already happening, he replied. She hesitated. I was trying to protect students from environments that could harm them. By deciding for them? Her composure wavered. You don't understand the pressures. Maybe not, he said evenly, but I understand what it feels like to be told I don't belong. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Behind her, Whitman called her name. She turned away. That night, the district released a short statement online. An independent review will assess counseling practices to ensure equitable guidance for all students. Equitable. The word sounded official. Neutral. Necessary. Malik lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Winning the scholarship had felt like triumph. This felt heavier. He thought about the younger students watching, about Jamal, about the 2 black seniors last year who never submitted their applications. He closed his eyes. Exposure was revenge. It was light, and light, once turned on, made it impossible to pretend the shadows weren't there. The district investigators arrived on a Monday morning. 2 people, neutral expressions, leather folders, no raised voices. That was how institutions handle discomfort. Quietly, methodically, as if injustice were a paperwork error. Malik watched from his locker as they disappeared into the administrative wing. Feels official, Jamal muttered beside him. It is, Malik replied. By third period, emails were already being requested. Recommendation letter archives. Application tracking spreadsheets. Counselor communications. In AP English, Mr. Clark closed the classroom door. I won't discuss specifics, he said carefully, but transparency is not the enemy of the school. A student raised a hand. Are they firing her? Mr. Clark's jaw tightened. This is about systems, not spectacle. Malik wrote that down in the margin of his notebook. Systems, not spectacle. After lunch, he was called to the conference room again. This time the atmosphere felt different. Ms. Peterson was not there. Instead, one of the investigators, Ms. Randall, gestured for him to sit. Malik, thank you for speaking with us, she said. I just told the truth, he replied. She nodded. Tell again. So he did. He described the phrases, the tone, the email to his teachers, the meeting about belonging. Ms. Randall typed steadily. Did she ever explicitly mention race? The second investigator asked. No, Malik said. What made you believe it was a factor? He paused. The pattern, he said, and what she didn't say to other students. Ms. Randall looked up. Can you elaborate? He inhaled slowly. She encouraged some students to be bold, confident, elite. With me, it was caution, fit, practicality. And how did that make you feel? The question landed harder than the others. Small, he answered honestly. Like I had to prove I deserved oxygen. Silence filled the room for a beat. Thank you, Ms. Randall said quietly. When he stepped back into the hallway, he felt drained. Denise was waiting near the entrance. They asked you, she asked. He nodded. Me too, she said. About the meeting. How'd it go? She exhaled. They're thorough. Inside the counseling office, Ms. Peterson sat alone at her desk. Her computer screen displayed an inbox pulled open by investigators. Subject line scrolled past her eyes. Student concerns, Malik Johnson. Application strategy, Jamal Carter. Recommendation priority, Emily Harris. She hadn't meant harm. That thought repeated in her mind like a defense attorney's whisper. She had seen students struggle at elite schools before. She had watched isolation hollow them out. She had believed she was sparing some of them that pain. But the spreadsheets told a story she hadn't consciously written. Recommendation letters for white students were longer on average. Turnaround times shorter. Descriptors more expansive. Exceptional leadership, natural scholar, intellectual risk-taker. For others, hardworking, reliable, well-prepared. Subtle differences, but patterns nonetheless. Whitman entered quietly. This is more serious than I thought, he admitted. Ms. Peterson stared at the screen. I never said he couldn't apply. That's not the question, Whitman replied. She looked at him sharply. You approved those emails. And now we're reviewing them. Her composure cracked. So this falls on me? Whitman didn't answer. Across campus, Aisha typed updates for Ledger. District review uncovers disparities in recommendation timelines and language tone. She hesitated before adding, investigators are examining whether implicit bias influenced guidance practices. Implicit bias. The phrase felt clinical. Malik sat on the bleachers after school, staring at the empty football field. Jamal joined him. You look like you lost something, Jamal said. Feels like I did. You won a full scholarship. I know. Then why the face? Malik rubbed his hands together. Because this isn't just about me. Where they decide it's all a misunderstanding. Then it's still on record, Jamal said. They can't unsee it. Malik nodded slowly. Later that week, the district released preliminary findings. No dramatic press conference, just a document posted online. It confirmed disparities in application encouragement patterns. It recommended mandatory bias training and a restructuring of recommendation oversight. And one more line. Pending further review, Ms. Laura Peterson is placed on administrative leave. The hallway buzzed when the news broke. Administrative leave, someone whispered. Malik didn't celebrate. He felt something heavier than victory. Denise found him at the kitchen table that evening, scrolling through the report. You okay? She asked. I didn't want someone to lose their job, he said quietly. You wanted fairness. Is this fairness? It's accountability, she replied gently. Those aren't the same thing. He looked up at her. Do you think she meant it? Denise considered that. Intent doesn't change impact, she said again. But impact can change intent. He leaned back in his chair. For years, Lincoln High had operated on quiet assumptions. Now, those assumptions were in black and white. The investigation wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was undeniable. And for the first time, the burden of proof wasn't resting on Malik's shoulders. It was resting on the system itself. The school board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 6 p.m. By 5:15, the parking lot was full. Malik stood near the entrance with Denise, hands tucked into the pockets of his blazer. He had never worn it to a school event before. Tonight felt different. Remember, Denise said quietly, you don't owe anyone anger. He nodded. I know. Inside, the auditorium buzzed with layered tension. Parents in press shirts, students whispering in tight clusters, teachers seated stiffly in the middle rows. At the front of the room, 5 board members sat behind a long table draped in navy cloth. Microphones lined the edge like small sentries. Assistant Principal Whitman stood near the podium. Ms. Peterson was not present. Aisha slipped into the seat beside Malik. You signing up to speak? He hesitated. Yes. The meeting opened with procedural calm. Item 4, the board chair announced. Review of district counseling equity practices. Whitman approached the microphone. The internal investigation identified disparities in application guidance and recommendation practices. He read carefully. While no explicit discriminatory intent was documented, patterns consistent with implicit bias were found. A murmur rippled through the audience. The chair nodded. What corrective actions are being implemented? Whitman cleared his throat. Mandatory bias training for counseling staff. A standardized rubric for recommendation letters. Independent review of all competitive application advising. And Ms. Peterson? A board member asked. Whitman inhaled. She has been placed on administrative leave pending final personnel determination. The room shifted. Not applause, not outrage, just the weight of it. Public comment began. A white parent approached first. This has been blown out of proportion, she said sharply. We're tarnishing the reputation of a dedicated counselor over misunderstandings. A few nods in the audience. Then Denise stood. Malik felt his pulse spike. She walked to the microphone, hospital badge still clipped to her scrubs. My name is Denise Johnson, she began steadily. My son was told to be realistic about where he belongs. Silence fell. He earned a full tuition scholarship to Westbridge Academy the next day. A stir moved across the room. This isn't about punishment, Denise continued. It's about patterns. When certain students are encouraged to leap and others are advised to shrink, that's not misunderstanding. That's limitation. Her voice didn't shake. We cannot prepare our children for a biased world by becoming part of that bias. She stepped back. Malik swallowed hard. When his name was called, his legs felt heavier than they had during any debate tournament. He walked to the microphone. "My name is Malik Johnson," he said, voice clear despite the thrum in his ears. "I was told I might be overreaching." He glanced briefly at the board members. "I was told institutions determine belonging." A pause. "But institutions are made of people." He let that settle. "I don't think Miss Peterson woke up trying to hurt anyone. I think she believed she was protecting students from rejection." He took a breath. "But protection that limits opportunity isn't protection. It's control." The room was quiet enough to hear the hum of the lights. "I got into Westbridge," he continued, "but there are students who didn't apply because they trusted the guidance they were given." His voice softened. "This isn't about me winning. It's about making sure no one else is told to shrink before they've even tried." He stepped away from the microphone. For a second, there was only silence. Then a few claps. Then more. Not explosive, not triumphant, but steady after public comment ended. The board deliberated briefly. The final statement was measured. Based on the findings, the chair said, "The district will accept Ms. Peterson's resignation effective immediately. Additionally, structural reforms to counseling oversight will be enacted." Resignation. The word landed quietly. Not fired, not villain, just consequence. Outside the auditorium, the night air felt cooler. Reporters from the local paper lingered near the steps. Aisha gave a quick interview, careful with her words. "This was about equity," she said, "not spectacle." Malik stood slightly apart, watching parents cluster in discussion. Jamal approached him. "She resigned." Jamal said, "Yeah. You okay?" Malik looked at the dark sky. "I didn't want it to end like this." "How did you want it to end?" "I don't know. Different." Jamal shrugged. Change never looks clean. Denise joined them, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder. "You spoke well," she said. He nodded slowly. Across the parking lot, Miss Peterson's car was gone. No dramatic exit. No confrontation. Just absence. Malik felt no surge of victory. Only a quiet recognition of cost. A career altered. A reputation questioned. A system forced to confront itself. He looked down at his hands. They weren't shaking anymore. For years, Lincoln High had operated on invisible ceilings. Tonight, those ceilings had cracks running through them. Not shattered, but undeniable. And as Malik walked toward the car with his mother, he understood something clearly. Justice wasn't loud. It was layered. It carried weight. And sometimes, it required walking into a room where you once felt small. And speaking anyway. Graduation week arrived quietly. No more investigative emails. No more emergency meetings. Just caps and gowns hanging in plastic by bedroom doors, and final exams that felt smaller than they should have. Malik stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie. Westbridge Academy. The word still startled him when he thought them too long. Denise leaned against the doorframe. "You packed?" "Mostly." "Excited?" He paused. "Yes." She studied him. And nervous." She smiled gently. "Good. That means it matters." At school, Lincoln High looked almost ceremonial. Banners hung in the hallways celebrating graduates. A new bulletin board had been installed outside the counseling office. College acceptances, class of 20. This time, the photos were arranged alphabetically. No clustering, no subtle hierarchy. Malik stared at it for a long moment. Jamal stepped beside him. "Look at that." "Yeah. My mom said they hired an interim counselor from the district equity office." "I heard," Malik replied. "And there's a new policy. Students get to review their recommendation letters before submission." Malik raised an eyebrow. "That's new. Guess you shook something loose." He didn't answer. In AP English, Mr. Clark handed back final essays. "You'll write about this someday," Mr. Clark said quietly as he placed Malik's paper on the desk. "About what?" "About how institutions bend when enough pressure is applied." Malik gave a small smile. "Maybe." After class, Aisha caught up with him in the hallway. "The Ledger won a regional student journalism award," she said breathlessly. "For the article?" For the series. He blinked. Series? She grinned. There were 3 follow-ups. He laughed softly. Of course there were. She hesitated. Do you regret it? He thought carefully. I regret that it was necessary, he said. Not that it happened. That evening, graduation filled the football field with folding chairs and proud families. Malik sat in his cap and gown, tassel brushing his temple as the wind picked up. Names were called. Cheers rose and fell. When it was his turn, Malik Johnson, the applause felt louder than usual. He walked across the stage, shook Whitman's hand. Still assistant principal, though more careful now. Congratulations, Whitman said quietly. Thank you. Their eyes met briefly. Something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or caution. Back in his seat, Malik scanned the crowd until he found Denise. She stood, clapping fiercely, tears bright on her cheeks. He felt his throat tighten. After the ceremony, families spilled onto the field. Jamal hugged him hard. Don't forget us when you're famous. I'm not going to be famous. You already are a little. Malik laughed. Denise wrapped him in her arms next. You did more than get into a college, she whispered. He rested his chin on her shoulder. I just told the truth. And that's rarely small. Later that night, his room looked half empty. Suitcases lined the wall. The scholarship letter still hung on the refrigerator, now joined by his diploma. He sat on his bed, scrolling through Westbridge's orientation materials. Photos of stone buildings. Students lounging on green lawns. Faces diverse, but not evenly so. He exhaled slowly. Denise knocked lightly before entering. You scared? She asked. A little. About what? He hesitated. About walking into another space that might not expect me. She sat beside him. They may not expect you, she said, but you expect yourself. He nodded. And this time, she added gently, you won't walk in smaller. He looked down at his hands. She was right. Lincoln High had taught him something no brochure could promise. Belonging wasn't granted. It was asserted. The next morning, as they loaded the car, Jamal jogged up the sidewalk. For the road, he said, handing Malik a folded newspaper, the local paper. Headline near the bottom, District implements equity reforms after counseling review. Malik scanned the article. Standardized oversight. Bias training. Student review rights. He folded it carefully and tucked it into his bag. Proof, Jamal said. Of what? That pushing works. Malik smiled. As the car pulled away from the curb, Lincoln High grew smaller in the rearview mirror. Not erased, not forgotten, just part of the road behind him. He didn't know what Westbridge would bring. He didn't know whether the new spaces would welcome him easily, but he knew this. He would never again let someone else define the edges of his belonging. And somewhere back at Lincoln High, beneath newly hung banners and revised policies, a quieter legacy remained. Students watching, students applying, students no longer told to shrink before they tried. The future wasn't fixed, but it had shifted. And this time, the shift had his fingerprints on it.